Sigillite! Horus roared, striding ahead of his brothers, his footsteps like armoured thunder. Explain yourself. Several of the assembled lords and adepts stared from their places around the debating table, the wrath of 3 enraged Primarchs, enough to cow almost any mortal into fearful penitence. Malcador, however, remained seated in his tall wooden throne, gazing levelly back. Alpharius, this is your doing, I would guess. He had tried in vain to keep it from his nephews. Until it was done, he should have known his efforts would have been for naught. The Hydra had his agents embedded everywhere. Even now, he could see from the faint etchings on the 20th's face that word of their brother's demise had been surgically disseminated through the cosmos to the other Primarchs. He believed he had more time, a day or 2 longer, to delay them, to keep the peace, to enact the Emperor's justice. But his nephews were too clever for his tricks. His arrogance had cost him, and now he might have to face the wrath of 3 demigods. Even if he could smite all 3, would his lord forgive him? 5 sons gone, and yet they still had so much to do. No, Malcador pushed the thought aside. He would do as he always had done when cornered. He would use his words to call them into submission. At Horus's side came the Lord of the Alpha Legion, resplendent in ornate ceremonial battle plate. He offered no reply beyond a half sneer directed at the army officers backing away from their posts. Flanking the doors, they were the only armed men in the room, and the thought of raising their laslock rifles never crossed their minds. Horus reached the far side of the table. The wolf pelt draped across his immense ceramite pauldrons settled as the Primarch raised an accusing finger. I gave you an order, dear uncle. Explain yourself. There were raised voices in the hallway beyond the chamber, and the clamour of more armoured warriors approaching. The Hegemon was not officially guarded by the Custodes, yet word of this unexpected intrusion had clearly already reached the Palace Watch commanders as a handful of golden shield bearers surged into view. They halted at the threshold, scanning the room in something like confusion. Lord Regent, eyeing the 3 Primarchs warily, with one hand on the pommel of his sword. Do you require our assistance? Malcador drummed his finger upon the smooth tabletop, never breaking Horus's flinty gaze. No, Captain. This is nothing I cannot handle. Thank you for your diligence and your concern. Your warriors may return to their duties. The custodian raised an eyebrow, but nodded slowly. As you wish, he murmured, waving several of the more visibly distressed courtiers out before him. Others seized the opportunity too, and the chamber rapidly emptied. Malcador felt a soft touch at his shoulder. Sybil Neaster, his personal astropath, took her leave, though she spared a pointed glare for the 3rd Primarch as she passed. The Khan, renowned warhawk of Chagorus, bowed his head courteously in response. Then he made a wide circle around the edge of the low-ceiling chamber, before closing the doors behind them all. You as well, Jakatai. Malcador sighed, then pursed his lips. What brings you so promptly to the throne world, when not even Lady Neaster can reach your expedition's chantries when we need to? My brother calls, and I answer, the Khan replied in his softly accented Gothic, leaning casually against a marble pillar. It is the way you made us, no? Horus growled impatiently from behind gritted teeth. And now you answer me, Sigillite. I will not ask again. The confrontation had been inevitable. The Emperor had made it so, against Malcador's urgings, and now the moment was upon them. I presume, he said carefully, that you refer to the work being undertaken by the Masonic guilds in the Investory. Horus glowered. You know I do. This is an insult. Did you think we would let this pass unremarked, my remaining brothers and I? You overstep your authority, old man. You cannot simply undo history as it suits your secretive whims. When my father hears of this, he will... What makes you think that the Emperor is unaware of this matter? Malcador interrupted. That the order did not come from his lips, and that I'm not merely acting as his loyal servant. The Primarch shook his head, an exasperated smile turning the corners of his mouth. I'm standing here before you, uncle. Please do not lie to my face. Alfaris has shown me all I need to see. Enough to know that you and your accomplices have taken great pains to hide this from the War Council and the rest of the Imperium as well. There is no seal of the Aquila or the throne upon these orders. He gestured to the dozen or so mortals that remained in the chamber, though none aside from Malcador would meet his eye. That does not sound to me like the actions of loyal servants. If I did not know better, I would say they sound like those of ambitious, dishonest men who know that their positions within the hierarchy is uncertain at best and more likely redundant as time moves on. He gripped the edge of the table with his gauntleted hands and leaned wearily against it. The ancient redwood creaked under the weight. Tell me then, convince me, by what right do you seek to remove one of the 20 great statues from the Investorary, if not to besmirch the glory of the legions? Are these monuments to our great deeds, in the name of the Imperium, and the symbols to inspire all mankind? One so far, Malcador thought, but a second was soon to follow. Alfaris was holding back on the news of the other, perhaps to deliver at a later time as a separate, far more devastating second blow, or he simply did not know, which seemed unlikely, and then a third possibility came to Malcador's mind. Alfaris could not bring himself to deliver the news of the second to Horus out of fear of his brother's reaction, or because the pain he knew it would cause him. The Lunar Wolf shared no love for the 11th, few did, Alfaris being the exception. Horus was merely peacocking, giving the old man a dressing down in front of his brothers, to show that he was a good and just Primarch that defended the 11th's honour in his darkest hour. It explained why the 16th had remained so calm, emotionally charged, but far calmer than it would have been if he knew the same fate awaited the second. He doubted his head would still remain connected to his body if he did. Of course, Horus was right. Secretly, he couldn't deny that. But these were his father's commands, not his. He had attempted to counsel the Emperor towards another approach, and his words fell on deaf ears. Their father would not be moved by appeals to reason. His orders came as cold, icy indifference. Malcador never particularly liked the 16th Primarch, but in this singular, malevolent act he shared in his nephew's grief. Although he could never admit it, he had to play his part. One day he might forgive himself over the next millennia of his life, but for now he could only appeal to Horus's sense of duty. At this, Malcador rose from his seat. Glory? Aye, something your allies know only because they see it reflected in my father's armour as you all fawn at his feet. The Sigillite chuckled, though the words stung more deeply than he would let anyone there present know. Do you fight to bring the galaxy to compliance, Horus, because you seek glory and recognition? Or do you do it because it is your duty, the task given to you by your father, whom you love above all else? If the price of your loyalty is only a few 100 tons of white marble and a little fanfare, then what glory have the legions earned, truly? Horus bristled at this, Alfaris too, though the Khan still seemed content merely to listen and observe. The Primarch of the 16th raised himself back up to his full post-human height and began to stalk purposely around the table. We come here as friends in search of truth and understanding, and yet you heap more insults upon us, he rumbled, shoving a heavy wooden chair aside like a child's plaything. Not content with striking one of my brothers from the passages of history, now you would dare to question our place in our father's great vision altogether. If you were me, Sigillite, how would you react right now? You know full well that Alfaris
Jackatai and I could crush you and every one of your fellow conspirators, and then walk freely from this palace to return to the crusade as if nothing had happened."
Malcador shrugged.
"True enough, I expect. But is that how you would have others know you? As mighty lords of war, able to strike down any who question their right to rule over lesser men?"
"But, dear uncle,"
the Primarch almost whispered as he loomed over the Sigillite,
"that is what we are."
"Ah, and there we have it," Malcador noted. "The Cophonian hubris, the gangland pride, hidden beneath a legion's noble livery." He smiled up at the Primarch. He was close enough to smell the machine oil and lapping powder on his warplate.
"Horus, Lord and Commander of the 16th Legion, Lunar Wolves,"
the Sigillite said with a flourish.
"May I present the Honourable Nabaran Patronus Vivar of House Calpurnus. He has come to see the glory of the Emperor's sons for himself."
The Primarch's eyes darted to the aging man standing nervously to Malcador's left. His retainers, clad in armour of silvered mail and gold bands, had been careful to position themselves between their master and this hulking demigod, though they did not once look up from the floor. Horus regarded all of them carefully, then glanced at Alfarius. The other Primarch shrugged, and Horus turned to Vivar himself.
"I know of House Calpurnus,"
he muttered begrudgingly.
"I have a passion for the old tales, and I've read the chronicles of the unification penned by your ancestors. Much I've learned from them of my father's noble deeds before I ever knew him, and for that reason alone I afford you the respect I believe you deserve."
He lowered his head, just a fraction, but it was enough to set the Nabaran to a much deeper bow in return. "My lord, it is an honour to meet you at last. I have travelled here to the palace with my third cousin, Sizun Zandor, and Alum." Horus raised his hand, silencing Vivar instantly.
"But I will not be distracted from my purpose here this day. My brothers and I have come to put an end to this madness once and for all. The history of the Imperium is not something that can be amended. We will not allow it."
Pacing now around the other men and women in the chamber, Alfarius nodded in agreement.
"We know the price of destiny, Lord Regent. We know the sacrifices that must be made. There was always a chance that some of us would not live to see the galaxy united beneath our father's banner."
He saluted with the one fist to his chest, being sure to mark the Sigillite's reaction to the outdated gesture.
"But to deny that they ever existed, to openly dishonour the memory of our fallen brothers, what gives you the right to decide that, in secret, behind closed doors?"
The Lunar Wolf had reacted exactly how he had warned the Emperor that he would, because they believed they were special, and in a sense they were, yet he had known their father far longer than any of them. If he would not heed his words, then what chance did any of his sons have? He had pleaded with his sire at length for another course of action, but he was rebuked at every consultation. He took no pleasure in the task, resented it even, yet the Emperor had made up his mind. There was no more debate left in him, and so he obeyed. He had hoped that if confronted, their father would have been the one to break the news, yet he was confidently absent, and so the unenviable task fell to him. The loss may be too much for his sons to bear, he admitted to himself. Even a lie might have been better than silence from their father. At least then they could perhaps understand their father's actions. Instead, they were left only with the sour taste of betrayal in each of their mouths, and he had not the skill to remove the bitter residue for them. His only gambit was to berate him further. To cower Primarch. That would be a feat to add to his ledger. Malcador glared at him.
"Do not speak to me of secrets. You are playing a dangerous game, the three of you, and my patience grows thin."
Then, to a chorus of poorly stifled gasps, the Sigillite turned his back on Horus. He could feel every pair of eyes in the room upon him as he retrieved his eagle-topped staff from its cradle beside the throne, and steeled himself to face down the monsters he had helped to create. He lowered himself back to his seat and peered out from beneath the cowl of his hood.
While our great emperor is absent from the throne world, I carry his authority and I act in his name. We here, we lords and ladies of Terra, have given the matter adequate deliberation and decided that a tribute to a fallen and disgraced Primarch is not a monument worthy of the Investieri. The statue will be removed, the marble pulverized and used to line the paths of the state gardens in the inner palace.
Even the Khan stiffened at that, but he meant every word of it. The 11th deserved every curse heaped upon him, for he had disgraced the Emperor, and in doing so, had set in motion a series of events that would lead to the Second's erasure as well. Yet he hadn't the heart to tell them. The loss of one brother was enough. He would allow the Emperor that sorry honour. In their father's eyes, exposing one risked revealing the truth about chaos, and that secret had to remain buried, no matter the cost. He could throttle the 11th to death for that, and so would Horus if he knew. The weight of the undeserved dishonour to the Second was a crushing burden for the Sigillite to bear, but he would carry it for his Emperor. Horus stood, absolutely motionless, save for the twitching of his fingers. Doubtless he was imagining all the ways he might tear the Sigillite limb from limb.
"Not worthy,"
he growled. Malcador leaned against the throne, carven back.
If you cannot see the reasoning behind this decision, then you only convince me further that it is the right one, and that there is nothing more to discuss. Pray, return to your legions. The Imperium needs victories more than ever. Let these past failures lie.
Quite unexpectedly, Horus laughed, loud and long.
"You cannot even say it, can you?"
he said, incredulously.
"You can't even say his name."
"Don't," Malcador's mind pleaded. He could not bear to hear the traitor's name out loud, for he was the one that doomed the Second, the one Primarch he had come to love as a son, the one that did not deserve the fate dealt to him, and yet he carried out his Lord's will regardless. He questioned how much of his own humanity was left after the countless millennia. This was the price of absolute loyalty to a vision of a united mankind. It was a cost many of his Lord's previous aides were unwilling to pay, and so one by one they left him. But he had served too long to abandon him now, and so he would remind his nephews that he was no mere old man.
"Don't speak it!"
Malcador thundered, loading the words with psychic force that struck the Primarch's mind like a hammer to the forehead. Horus reeled, blinking away the pain. His brothers too seemed to feel the blow, along with every mortal still in the chamber. Even the Sigillite's own ears rang, but he kept his voice firm and unwavering.
This was your father's command, boy, and you all agreed to it. To disobey now is to break faith with the Emperor himself.
The Primarch gave a wry, defiant grin.
"My brother's name was..."
Faster than human thought, Malcador's empty hand snapped up into an arcane gesture, long forgotten by any other living soul on Terra.
"Silence!"
Horus froze. His limbs locked fast within his armour. He shuddered uncontrollably, pressure building in his muscles as he fought against it. Slowly, Malcador stood, holding the Primarch in place with the power of his mind and nothing more. The Khan sprang towards the centre of the room.
"Lord Regent!"
he urged, holding out his open hands.
"You must release him. Please. He speaks from grief, and a shame we all share."
The air between them thrummed with invisible energy. Malcador could still see that hateful, defiant pride shining through in Horus's palsied gaze.
You are not ready for the future you crave, he hissed. None of you are.
He forced Horus down into his knees. "Mal," the stricken Primarch choked. "Mal." The Sigilite's face twisted in a vengeful rictus. He felt the old, familiar rage begin to stir deep in his undying soul.
Enough! You will be silent, or I will unmake you here and now.
Horus's windpipe closed with a sickly crackle. His right eye bloomed, red as a blood vessel burst in the screeler. But still, he would not relent, so defiant, so ungrateful. Alfarius took an uncertain step back.
Stop! Lord Regent, stop! You will kill him.
Tiny crawling motes of light began to creep in the edge of Malcador's vision. He could feel heat building within the ancient bones, stinging at the meat of his flesh. The stench of burning hair rose in his nostrils.
Sigilite!
Bellowed the Khan, and in an instant, it was over. Malcador released Horus. The Primarch crashed to the tiled floor, convulsing, almost gagging in a rough lungfuls of air. For the first time in 1,000 lifetimes, the Sigilite lost himself to an unspeakable fury. Whatever Horus was, whatever he had done, he did not deserve that. All his rage, his suffering, his mourning and resentment brought down on a grief-stricken son. It was almost too much to bear. For a moment he wished for death, but his unshakable duty called him back from the edge. His message was clear to all observers. The Regent of Terra's authority was absolute and binding, even to the Primarchs. They would obey their father's edict and never speak the names of their former brothers ever again. Alfarius rushed to his side.
Breathe, brother. Just breathe.
With his heart pounding inside his skull, Malcador gripped the cold iron of his staff. He felt like a drowning man clinging to the last slippery lifeline he could find.
You will be the death of me,
he gasped.
You and your princeling brothers. There are things in this galaxy that you do not need to know, simply because you do not need to. And the knowledge of that just eats away at your heart, doesn't it?
Still trembling, Horus found his feet. His brothers hauled him up, and he stood, swaying for a moment. Then he took a step forwards. The Sigilite pawed absently at his simple robes and the Archaeotech collar around his neck.
You cannot see what we have done for you, because you focus too much on what more you think you deserve. You have no earthly concept of what it has been sacrificed, just so that you may ascend.
Horus's hand closed around the grip of his sword, sheathed at his hip. Its quillions were rendered as the wings of the Aquila, gleaming gold, with the all-seeing eye of terror between them.
And this, said Malcador, this is why mankind cannot be ruled by the post-humans. Your concerns are not those of ordinary men who must eat and sleep and love and fear and ultimately die, all without ever knowing the kind of immortality you so crave. If you cannot see this, then you are all the proof I need.
The blade's energy field activated as it left its scabbard. The Khan shook his head.
Peace, brother. Consider where you are.
But Horus's expression was dark. He had humiliated Horus in front of his brothers, something he was sure the Lunar Wolf would not easily forget or forgive. But the arrogant Primarch had overstepped his authority. He had to make an example out of the 16th to assert his rule as Regent of Terra, and now they all knew his true power. The anger across Horus's face was clear. He sought to end the Sigilite's life here and now. If he died at the hands of those he helped to create, then he would go quietly into that good night, his long service finally over. He glared down at the frail old man before him. Then he raised the sword high and drove it into the surface of the table. The tip speared right down through the petrified wood, sticking fast in the floor beneath it, and he left it quivering in place.
I defy you,
Horus spat at the Sigillite.
You and your shadowy council of bureaucrats. Your kind is not fit to rule anything. An Imperium ruled by men would be... It would be...
Exactly what your father intended,
Malcador murmured. A tear stung its way down his cheek.
Leave this place, Horus. Return to the crusading and the bloodshed you love so dearly. You will have your moment of glory. I promise you that.
Half a metre above the debating table, the Eye of Terror and the Aquila were inverted in a symbolic act of violence, and the Imperial Regent could not help but see that as a grim portent indeed.